Do you ever wonder how you're ever going to escape the expectations of others? Hi, I'm Carly Myers, a stress management expert, and this month we're breaking down the stigma behind being selfish. And I've brought on our amazing guest, Danielle Mercurio, to talk about this. Danielle is paving the way for self-help and spirituality to be recognized as a sustainable force within modern society. As a confidence coach, speaker, meditation teacher, and astrologist, she empowers individuals to be successful, intentional, and live life with purpose. She has spoken across the country, inspiring people back into their greatness by igniting their truth. And, she is also a comedian. So you may have seen her with Does This Make Me Look Spiritual, or her podcast series, The Danielle Mercurio Show. I am so excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I was so excited when I realized it was today. It's like,
oh. I love it. So I'm curious, as I'm sure we're all really curious for those of us that already know you, because you're a big deal. How did you get here? Like, how did you get to this place where you've reclaimed selfish, where you are like in touch, the whole 9 yards?
right, absolutely. So, I was born a triple Leo. I feel like I was born meant for the spotlight. However, I did not grow up in an environment where that was really recognized. And from a place where, I think for a lot of us, we can say like we had all these dreams or hopes when we were little. Like we can think back and we were like, I want to be this when I grow up. And everyone's like, yes, yes, yes. And then you're like, okay, let's implement it. And all of a sudden, parents and teachers are kind of like, oh, well, we didn't mean like that big or that bold. Like, why don't you just kind of do this instead? And so for me, well, I felt like I had all of these big ideas about what it meant to be kind of a spot, like in the spotlight when I grew up. I also felt like it actually wasn't possible. So I spent most of my life kind of just like becoming a people pleaser and showing up for everybody else's timelines and doing what I thought I was supposed to. And I thought that if I followed the rules enough, I thought if I did what everybody told me, not only would it give me love and validation, eventually somehow I would get to a spot where I would have enough independence to be able to do what it is that I want. However, when you spend your whole life trying to please everybody else, you're never going to create that space or that time to do what it is that you really want to do, right? And so it just kept building and building without me even really recognizing how deep it was. I battled with depression in and out through my teens, college years. And it wasn't until I graduated college, I had an elementary ed degree, which wasn't my choice. Nothing wrong with being a teacher. I am a teacher technically today in a lot of ways, but it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't the major I wanted. It wasn't the life I wanted. And so when I left college, I was lost for a few years, and I was still in this state of confusion, still in this state of, why isn't it working? How come I am doing everything society wants from me and I'm still not happy? I'm still not satisfied. And so instead of getting help per se, I started to move into what I call escapism, which is reaching for things outside of me. Men, drugs, alcohol, it didn't matter. It was anything for me to get outside of myself. And I did that day in and day out, trying to please the world by day, destroying myself by night. And eventually it caught up to me in my mid-20s. And I had a rock bottom that was pretty awful. And it was awful enough to finally get me to a space where I needed to get help. And through giving myself permission to get help and taking it seriously, I started to heal this relationship with, I have to be good for the world. I have to please everybody else. And instead, I can put everybody else on the back burner and put myself first. And not only is that okay, it is necessary. And through doing that, I started to redevelop my own allyship with myself. I started to become my own best friend. It didn't happen overnight, but I started to see the beauty in becoming your own best friend. And through that, I realized and recognized I had to start to do that for others. And that's kind of the abbreviated journey of how it all went down. And it's been almost 10 years now since that kind of shift.
Wow. Wow. So you're now like, you made that shift, you went through that journey, it didn't happen overnight. And, there's lots of hard work and all of that. So I'm curious, like, what do you like for the listeners at home? What do you recommend as like baby steps or just the next step that we can take to start putting ourselves first, to stop focusing on what society or, the people in our life expects of us?
Totally, because it all seems like a great idea. And then when we go to put it in reality, we still aren't putting ourselves first. We're still not creating boundaries because we don't know how. And so we've got to develop the foundation within our own self. And so for me, when I first got into the self-help world, a lot of people were throwing positivity at me and self-love. And I wasn't into it, to be honest with you, because I was like, I judge myself every single day. I look in the mirror and I'm mean. I can't put a positive note like an affirmation on my mirror and tell myself I love myself every day. That's too far. I'm not there yet. So I started to ignore all the over positivity and self-love stuff. And I started to just say, well, what, instead of self-love, what if I could focus on self-okay? Today, I woke up and that's okay. I'm not going to entertain anything that's kind of on my mind. I'm not going to entertain any noises when I start to judge myself or beat myself up. I'm also not going to worry about championing myself because I don't even know how to do that. And so I started with this process of self-okay. And that's what I encourage for all of you too. What can you do when you wake up in the morning? Don't reach for your phone right away, because what we're doing when we reach for our phone, besides to turn off our alarm and we're going on Instagram and we're checking our email, we're immediately giving our power away. We are saying everyone else comes first immediately, because now I'm checking my email, my Instagram, and I'm looking at everybody else before I even look at myself. So when you wake up in the morning, take a moment, take a breath, just say good morning, and make it really simple. Look in the mirror and say, let's try to do our best today. And the more that we can kind of be in the space of neutrality, not really trying to be overly good and also not entertaining the negativity, we can start to shift and we can start to create a really nice baseline. And then from that baseline, then you can start to weave in some more words of encouragement. Then you can start to explore this notion of liking yourself more, saying like positive things, and it starts to shift and build from there. So meet yourself where you're at. Don't try to be this like overly positive, in love with yourself person right away, and meet yourself where you're at and just try that for a while.
Yeah. It's almost like going on a date with somebody that you've never met and being like, I love you. And you're like, I'm lying to myself right now. Right?
Totally. He'd be like, there's the door and here's the check. Bye.
Yeah. And a lot of us do that to ourselves. So like to build the relationship, it only makes sense to just be realistic, just to
Yeah,
start slow.
totally.
Yeah. So what else, like, what does selfish mean to you? I'm
Yes.
curious.
So selfish, you know, when I first started to come up, when I started to hear that word, of course, immediately I thought guilty, right? Like I felt guilty. I felt like selfish was being spoiled. It was being just, yeah, all these like kind of negative connotations. And then once I realized like, no, being selfish is self-care, and being selfish is space. I create space for myself, and that is selfish. I need time where I'm not worrying about anyone else or anything, and I'm able to make a choice in that moment how I want to spend my time, what I want to do in that space. And I don't owe an explanation or a justification to anyone.
Mm. And I think like we were talking before, like in the studio, like pre-show, about how like this also can come down to like, first of all, it's the space. Like I feel like at the end of the day, it's like it's the space. And we were talking about how, like, okay, you write your to-do list, you keep your to-do list, and that's great. But like the space is the most important. The space for you on it is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Because you know what? Like sometimes you're just going to have to say no to people and you might have to disappoint them. But you know what? That's way better than disappointing yourself all the time.
Yeah, for real. So we want to know, just from those of you who are listening at home, like how have you in the past created a practice where you're making choices to put yourself first? And have they worked? Have they not? We're curious. So just comment below, let us know. And at this point, you're probably wondering why we're so hype about being selfish. And aside from the obvious, right? It's important to put yourself first, take care of yourself. I've co-founded a conference called Selfish Philly, and Danielle Mercurio is our MC. So we are so freaking excited about it. It is going to be such a freaking good day. We're going to have amazing content, free facials, free massages, Philadelphia's best wellness resources, and speakers, and the whole nine yards at the event. We will be talking about what it means to be selfish across the board. And I'm not just talking about the easy stuff either. We're going to be real. We're going to be talking about money. We're going to be talking about pleasure. We're going to be talking about some of the most difficult things, those barriers, right? We were talking about that earlier in the show, the barriers, being realistic about putting ourselves first. So it is going to be one of the biggest wellness events in Philadelphia that Philadelphia has seen of the year. So to find more information, make sure you click the link in our description, or if you're watching on Instagram, the link in our bio. Now, thank you. I want to give Danielle Mercurio one last like big virtual hug. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
course, and thank you. I'm so excited for Selfish Philly.
Going to be amazing. So this concludes this episode of the Stress Less Show. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, let us know by giving us a big old thumbs up and hitting that follow or subscribe button. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.